Hey everyone, welcome back to another STC Podcast, Interpreting in Healthcare. Today, I'm really excited to bring you one of our very special members who has been the person in charge of writing all those interesting and clever promotional blurbs for our podcast, but also has such an interesting background that I wanted to bring her to your notice to help encourage more of you who are members to become active in one of the work groups. Is there something you like to do? Do you like to write? Do you like to design? Do you like to edit? Do you like to proofread? Do you like to record? Do you like to come up with catchphrases? There are so many different ways that you could contribute, and maybe your job as an interpreter or trainer or translator doesn't allow for those other creative parts to have room to express themselves. Come aboard. We really would appreciate your participation. We've been growing all of our work groups, but more is always better. So, welcome, Olena Hart. You are Ukrainian core certified healthcare interpreter. You have over a decade of experience interpreting and translating in a variety of settings. You graduated cum laude from Kyiv National Linguistic University, and you majored in interpreting and translating. Well, that's something I would like to see more degrees offered here in the States. So congratulations to you. And amazingly, you are fluent in English, French, Ukrainian, Russian, and you're working on improving your Spanish. You are also head of the communication work group at the NCIHC. And I thank you for all of the great promotional blurbs you've been writing for us. One last thing I wanted to mention, that Olena was honored by Aldia as one of the 40 under 40 in 2022, because she recently made a career transition from interpreting to project management in the language access industry. And in February 2021, she founded an immigrant platform, a nonprofit organization offering free ESL classes and career advancement support for new immigrants to the US. So kudos to you, Olena, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, and I'm very, happy to be here. And I would like also to ask people to join us. We do need help. We do need other people's ideas and perspectives. So please join. And I just feel myself mostly as an activist at the moment. I'm very much into helping immigrants. And that's why I started Immigrant Platform. This is one of the things that I'm proud of because I just thought, okay, we need some group, we need community of the people who just to support each other, just to give each other some motivation to carry on, in different fields of life. And this is how it started. So we did allow the free ESL classes and some career advice, basically how to write a resume, how to apply for a job, all these issues because of my own experience when I first came, and maybe it's off the subject, but my resume had a photo, had my marital status and all this, because this is how you do it in Europe. And I feel that my first people who saw it were like, okay, why she sent us her photo, her headshot. So that was funny, but now we all know how to write it in American style, so it's important.
That's so key, I think, for ESL or for any language that you are trying to learn, especially when you are a new resident in the country where that language is spoken, is to have a tie-in with what you're learning in class to a practical application in your new life. And that is such a key thing to be able to train people on how to write a resume that is appropriate for the new cultural setting. That's a great idea. I know that for my healthcare interpreting class, I have a weekly video assignment where students have to record themselves doing smaller and ever larger tasks as the weeks go by. And the very last video is a pretend interview with a prospective employer. Why should we hire you? And it's a chance to record yourself talking about yourself, which is not always easy for everyone, regardless of what culture and then you add what cultural elements there may be to, it's not really the best thing to brag about yourself, or in English, the expression is blow your own horn. But this is a culture which does expect you matter-of-factly to do that, whereas other cultures might expect you to do it with much more ceremony. Or
Yeah,
much less.
you know what? Why it's important to learn a new language? Because by learning a new language, you learn a new culture. And when it happens in such a multilingual society as ours here in the United States, it means that it, just breaks some barriers. And maybe even helps us eradicate xenophobia, racism, because what is xenophobia? The fear of stranger, right? Of the person you don't know, you don't understand, you are fearful. So if we learn and know more about each other, we definitely can at least help fight it. It's important.
I think it's very important for language teachers as well as interpreter trainers to take those cultural elements into account. It's not just the culture of the target language that the interpreter is helping bridge, and it's not just American culture societally, but it's also the culture of the health industry, of the insurance industry. That's another whole world that people have to learn to navigate. So it's a great way to draw lesson plans or conversation scenarios for practicum purposes to talk about the way things work here, because you need to be also well-versed in all of the cultures that you're going to interact with on a daily basis, right?
And the more you know, you will most likely go to the specialist without thinking, okay, I know this like Spanish language, so I will be only going to doctors who speak it, right? So it creates and puts you in a place where you in your little community or bigger community, but you kind of living in your own country by physically being in the United States. Like I saw it happen with a lot of post-USSR people. They live in their own little district, right? Only go to work for each other, so they don't really need to learn English, and it creates when a person gets older and they need social services, it's very difficult, and they most likely will need interpreter because to find out how to get the pension, all this, as you say, cultural and how it all works here is different. They need assistance.
Yeah, I believe at the borders now, unless you have the app on your phone, it's really hard to navigate the process to even officially and legally request asylum. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, wow, what a number of hurdles to get through if you're older, if you don't have the financial circumstances to own a smartphone that can access the internet. Like it comes loaded with so many presuppositions about somebody's access to a variety of things, not just language, but education and internet even. Makes it fraught in terms of being able to help navigate people through the system. So that brings us to our first question. And I love that your background reflects the challenges that you faced coming over as an educated person with an advanced degree, and still some of the obstacles and the hurdles that you saw. When you look back, what are you most proud of?
Since you mentioned challenges, I didn't want to bring it up, but I do remember my first job and job offer. And I had this diploma, cum laude, as you said, from Ukraine in this, translation interpreting. And I'm like, would you like me to show it to you? It's evaluated and all. And they're like, no, it's okay. You have 40 hours training in the United States. That's enough. I felt so little. I felt, it just hurt my feelings because look, people, I'm here. This education also worthy. It's not in the United States, but don't make me feel like it doesn't matter. 5 years of my life that I, learned and studied. And so this is the challenge. It was just to feel myself, equal. I would say I always felt like I'm a second degree type of person here. I didn't feel the same. I wasn't sure of my abilities because of this, because I didn't have college degree from USA. I felt that it made a difference in certain jobs and how they see you. And somebody had to believe in you, in order for you to really get a good job, right? Somebody had to give a leap of faith. Okay, I believe that this diploma is, all valid. So this is one of the challenges. And another one would be probably just, accent. I would say accent. Sometimes people would always say, oh, you have such a cute accent. Where are you from? Like when you're just eating your lunch, minding your own business. And I know they want to be nice, like they pointed out something, but sometimes it's like, okay, I'm from Ukraine, and then they have nothing else to say. Oh, nice. I don't know. It's just something that very weird. One situation happened to me at the gym lately. So I came to the cycling class in the new gym. We just moved from Philadelphia to another city in Pennsylvania, and the instructor helped me, and I asked him to help me with setting up my bike. And he says, oh, so where are you from? I thought he meant like, I never seen you here in the gym. I'm like, we moved from Philadelphia. And he says, well, you do not sound like you're from Philadelphia. And I'm like, okay, then I'm from Ukraine. And the next question just made me like numb. He's like, so what do you think about Putin? It happened just this past year. Like how, like I was like, and what do you think I think as a Ukrainian? Just, put two and two together. What can I think? And yeah, this situation happened to me. People say cute accent, and I'm not ashamed of my accent. I feel, okay, it's my identity. I never pretended to be American-born person, although I have citizenship now. But I'm Ukrainian. At the end of the day, 30 years of my life spent in Ukraine, I kind of just throw it away and say, I'm American now. Call me Helen, not Olena.
Well, I feel for you. That resonates. My mom went to medical school in Brazil and didn't want to start over at the beginning. So she ended up working as a neuropathologist in a hospital, and then eventually as a math and science teacher in Catholic schools, because the state schools didn't even recognize her bachelor's degree, never mind her advanced degrees. Mm-hmm. So we remember, and the diplomas from Brazil are very ornate and big. It looks like, they were illustrated by monks or something. The embellished calligraphy and the ribbons, and, because our tradition is from Portugal, where I do believe the expression red tape for complicated bureaucratic paper processes originated. So with lots of pomp and circumstance. And I too remember how small she was made to feel that doesn't matter, we can't read it. And they were in Latin, they weren't even in Portuguese, although it's pretty close. Yeah. So yeah, that is something that we need to do better. The United States, the average United States citizen who doesn't have a passport and has never been outside the US borders does see the world as very America-centric, like if it's not here, it doesn't really exist. And it's changing somewhat with my kids' generation. There is more of an awareness of our role in the world and our impact on the world, but still they're not the folks hiring us. It's still the older folks hiring us. So
I think the reason for this is because we're living in multilingual country, but we're monolingual. I recently just came across a very interesting article, and it said that if USA basically keeps on being such monolingual country, then it will fall off behind any scientific research, any, just even development, because there are instances when, let's say, in 2004, the USA had trouble understanding the severity of avian flu because the original research was done in Chinese. So there are different, hurdles like
you
this.
You can stay in a bubble, right? If you don't stay plugged in. And I don't say this for any pro or con political stance, but you can't just watch one news network. Right? You have to go to multiple sources to find out what's happening in the world. And if I want news in the world, I have to go to networks outside the US so I can, hear about the Pope's visit in Portugal, or about an earthquake, or what's going on in terms of currencies, that's not going to be reported widely here, but it is available. So you have to be willing to plug in. And I think that's the argument we have to make to our healthcare, our allied healthcare providers, that they need to be plugged into the world. I mean, we're lucky that we're in the Pacific Northwest. University of Washington has a site called Ethnomed that helps orient providers to the cultures and beliefs from different countries and regions in the world that their patients may be from. And we need more interaction and training, I think, between providers and users of language access services, be it video remote interpreters, in-person interpreters requesting translation, to understand how to make those requests or how to match those requests so that, fewer trips back and forth, better efficiency, better quality by demanding a qualified, trained, or certified interpreter, and make that push. But that also requires, a salary that's commensurate with that degree that you have, rather than settling for 40 hours training only. So that brings me to the present. What do you think we could be doing better, whether it's NCIHC as an organization or at the state and local level? What should we be pushing for in our communities, or what do you see personally as a challenge for you right now, right here and now?
Well, I would like to discuss the challenge in the language access industry. I've been thinking a lot about it. So, of course, things are better. They are getting better. We are moving, we are educating people, but I feel that now we're at the stage when everyone, or almost everyone, is aware of language access, of 1557 Affordable Care Act, of Title VI, of civil rights from 1964, but there is little coordination between limited English proficient patients who do not know sometimes, very often, that they're entitled, that they have the right to ask for an interpreting service when they go to some, I don't know, when they go to get the driver's license, when they go, as we said, when they just leave and have to go to officials. And so people understand, especially in healthcare, I feel in the big hospitals, they do have the language access program, but still it's not sufficient sometimes. And we need to work to coordinate everything better, to make it all happen for people in a way that we see it not that introducing interpreting is not a liability because they don't want to be sued by like deaf or hard of hearing or by LEP patients, but because they feel that it's the right thing to do, because they're in their shoes, they feel their needs. So it's like, the metaphor I want to use here is like quitting smoking. So one person can quit because, okay, I will save this amount of money, I will not buy cigarettes. And another one quits for better purposes, thinking ahead, okay, I won't get lung cancer, maybe I will be healthy, I will live longer. So it has to be done, language access, for right reasons. And right reasons would be to have an inclusive society where even like linguistically inclusive at every stage, which is hard, of course, with so many different languages, but it's a problem. We need to think about it. Always be empathetic, put yourself on the place of other people, in the shoes of other people, to understand them. And also it's insufficient resources for languages of lesser diffusion. If we have a lot of terminology books for Spanish, let's say, even I would say for Russian, we have some, like I used to work for Ukrainian, I don't think so. So it's only my luggage of my knowledge back from Ukraine that I have. But for dialects or some very particular languages, they just struggle. They don't have a proper materials to prepare themselves to train. So this is another. And this is the big issue. They're smaller, of course, ignorance. People don't like change. Usually people don't welcome change. Everything was right. Why you didn't learn English? You've been, a lot of times I hear people say, oh, this person have been in the United States for years, but they didn't learn English. But what do you want from this person coming from third world country? And they say it out loud. They don't feel that it's unacceptable to think less of a person because they don't know language. This like breaks my heart. It wasn't told to me personally because I would reply, but it was told to my husband at work, for example, when he was delivering something to the place and the person couldn't explain in English. And then his boss said, what you expect from people like this? So it's a lot of stigma. They can say about inclusivity a lot and how we all such an inclusive society, but there are still some people who divide. It's my people and strangers. They're strangers. So I think, I don't know, just be kinder to each other, right? It's difficult.
And I think back to an interview I just did with Dr. Olena Hart, where if we could just have a few more providers at the table championing language access. When the doctor says, I need a new x-ray machine or I need MRI capabilities at this clinic, it's expensive. But the doctor says, I need this to do my job. If the doctor also said, like Dr. Hart said at Boston General, I need these interpreters to do my job, and pay them what they're worth, because without them, I'm practicing medicine like a veterinarian, and that's not how I want to practice medicine.
Yeah.
A few more voices at the table like that together with us. And then also what you said about languages of limited diffusion. Folks, if you're listening to this podcast now, if you're watching this podcast now, and you are an interpreter of a language of limited diffusion, so that can be any indigenous language from the Americas, from Central America, from North America, or the languages that aren't in the top 5 or 10 in your region. So that could be anything from a European language like Greek to East African language, right? That's not as much in demand in New England as it is here in the Pacific Northwest. We have a lot of interpreters for Somali, Amharic, and Mai and Tigrinya, not so much in New England, but that's the beauty of our connectivity now. If you are an interpreter for a rarer language, a language of limited diffusion, please come work with us. We have a special language of limited diffusions work group that's trying to put together the much needed resources online at the NCIHC website for free. If you're a member, you can go and access those dictionaries and glossaries, but we need to know about them. We need to find them. We need to source them and vet them for quality information, and then they get listed and you have a library available to you. So two very different and two very important things. We need to work more to reach out and network with our allied healthcare workers, and we need to support LLD language proficiency and improvement by warehousing a place where those reliable dictionaries and medical glossaries live. People can learn what they need to learn, but if you can't find a reliable resource, it makes it much harder to be able to provide the kind of language access that we all want to be able to provide. So that leads me to our final question, which is looking forward. What would you love to see happen, or what do you think needs to happen? I just kind of outlined what I think needs to happen. What about you?
Well, first of all, I think we should look at this problem from the different angle, and I would focus on education. As you said, children, the generation of the children. So let's just focus on the children and start learning foreign languages in elementary school. Why it's not happening? Like I started with learning English when I was 7, my first English lessons, and it's normal for everyone to start early. Here in the United States, it's mostly, I think, middle school, or even in most cases, high school. And by that time, you lose so many valuable years when child absorbs the knowledge as a sponge. that you're just wasting time. And it has to be, so learning foreign language has to be a trend. It has to be cool for children. It has to, make them want it, not because they have to know, a few words in Spanish by the end of high school. Like my husband, American born, I know more Spanish learning it for like 6 months than he learning it for 4 years. It's not how it's supposed to be. So let's just focus on doing that. And let's say I'm an immigrant, right? My kids are Ukrainians, half Americans at this point. But I would like to have access to like Ukrainian language at school. Let's get more certified, qualified teachers, and it will create more jobs, and it will let us have this cultural place where we exchange. Like this child comes from Brazil, let them learn Portuguese, Brazilian, because as a parent, our children lose the second language very often. They in the English circle, their friends speaking English mostly. It's difficult to preserve, especially if one of the parents is not speaking this language. So myself, I cannot cover all her Ukrainian language needs. So if school could help us, that would be great. And as I said, it would promote and make US a more inclusive, multilinguistical country. Because, I would like to say some statistics, which I read in this article I mentioned previously. So even though 70 million Americans speak language other than English at home, almost 80% are only speak English. So it's still a long way. So we have a lot of immigrants, but somehow 80% only speak English. So it might seem like, oh, we have so many languages around, but it's still mainly English on the top of this cake. So
I love what you said about let's make learning a second language something cool.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it should be in kindergarten. It should be in pre-K and kindergarten and elementary school, when, as you said, it's really easy to learn to make all the sounds. You can learn to speak relatively unaccentedly if you learn really young. And then that plasticity in your brain remains, even if you fall away from it in high school. Once you've been imprinted with that second or third language, it's there. And I think it builds better, stronger interconnectivity in different parts of your brain. I think they've also done studies that people who speak more than one language are affected to a lesser degree and later in life by all the forgetfulness and other related neurological deficits like Alzheimer's or different forms of dementia, because it keeps your brain more active, right? Use it or lose it is a great expression in English. So yeah, from both ends, right? Get them when they're young, work from the provider and in to help support language access, reach out to more folks in membership or become a member. A first-year membership is really affordable. And then come do some of the things that you wish you could do on the job that they don't give you the opportunity quite yet. You want to edit videos, you want to be a subtitler, come get some experience with us and work on things that interest you. It's fun. I really enjoy the work that I do with the council. It sounds sort of, canned, but it's true. I really enjoy it, or I wouldn't be here after more than a decade. The networking that you do, the colleagues that turn into friends, and then the work that you can feel proud of working to promote and advance, that really delivers a high degree of satisfaction that may or may not always be present in your day-to-day work. It is always present here. So I do thank you, Olena, so much for the work that you've done to help support the Standards and Training Committee and so many of the other committees to help reach more people and bring them in. And I hope today's podcast helps encourage you, listeners and viewers out there, to say, hey, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to work on the journal. I want to make charts. I want to help organize a major annual national event. We're here. We're waiting with open arms. Thank you so much for joining me today, Olena. You have a great rest of the day. And everybody, you also have a great rest of the day. And come say hello.